What is up, everyone? Latest episode of The Rundown coming at you. Kyle Stackpole, editor, WashingtonFootball.com. Here with me, as always, Zach Selby, staff writer, and our wonderful producer, Stevie Katz, Katz_Stevie on Twitter.
There you go.
Make sure to get it out there early. We got another episode, and we're gonna talk about position breakdowns because it is a couple weeks after the season, and I think it's a good time to still reflect. I know a lot of people like to look forward to free agency and the draft, but it's only January 21st. The season only ended a couple weeks ago, so I think it's worth looking at each position, thinking about where they were entering the year, what ended up happening. And then we can look a little bit forward of what to expect. So before we get into it, we're going to cover the offense today. Before we get into that, got to do the opening plugs. So this is an official podcast of the Washington football team. You can follow us wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Google Play. Watch us on YouTube. Every episode going forward, we're still going once a week. You can watch us or you can listen to us on the app and the website. So I guess, Zach, before we hop into it, how are you doing? I mean, we got a few days off, which for me was nice. It was nice to kind of get away for a little bit and then really enter the off season hard. But how are you doing?
I'm doing really refreshed, man. I feel really good. A couple of days ago, I went with my roommate and her boyfriend to get a pedicure for the first time ever. So that was awesome.
Wow.
Felt pampered and refreshed. But now, hey, I'm ready to attack the off season with a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed persona. So let's dive into it, man.
There we go. Treat yourself, man. I've never gotten a pedicure, but I kind of do want to get one.
It's worth it.
Be very relaxing.
So worth it.
So let's start with the offense. We're going to cover the offense today, and I think the defense next week. So we got to go with the quarterback. Obviously, the most important position, not just on the offense, but in all of football. And it was an interesting quarterback situation, to say the least.
Indeed.
So Washington won 7 games, was competitive in a playoff game, despite having to start 4 different quarterbacks, one of whom was preparing for finals about a month before he ended up starting. So it was just a wild time, but they did enough to make the playoffs, win the NFC East for the first time since 2015. So I guess kind of what were your thoughts on the quarterback situation as it was like entering the year?
Well, I would say that having 4 quarterbacks is getting starting reps in the season and postseason is never a good formula that you would like to. I mean, you know what they say when you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterback. I don't even know what they say when you have 4 quarterbacks. I guess you have negative quarterbacks. Yeah. I don't know. But, I mean, either way, once you kind of figured out the consistency of it, there started to be some results. Because I think, as it turned out, Alex Smith was the one who got the most starts out of anybody. And, I mean, he was 5-1 as a starter. And even though the numbers weren't necessarily the numbers that you like to see from the Chiefs or Josh Allen with the Bills or some other top high quality high end quarterback, they were still able to do enough to win, and that consistency went a long way, especially for a young offense that's still trying to grow, still trying to learn how to win in this league. And as it comes down to it, Alex Smith was more or less, for the most part, the guy to teach those guys how to win. Because if you look at those 5 wins, Steelers, Eagles, to win the NFC East, you had even a win against the San Francisco 49ers. So, I mean, they learned a lot from the consistency of the quarterback position, and I'm looking forward. Who knows what the position is going to look like, but this year they did enough to get the job done.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's really a testament to Scott Turner, first-year offensive coordinator, because if you really think about it, aside from Dwayne Haskins, it just seemed like he never firmly got a grasp of the offense, all the other quarterbacks, they did. I mean, you look at what Kyle Allen did in limited action, and the offense still looked good. I mean, people kind of forget about it because he was only in there for, I think, a couple starts, and then he got hurt. And the only time where the offense was really sputtering was against the 49ers when Alex was dealing with the calf issue, and then Dwayne ended up coming in. So I think And then Heineke comes in and just blows the doors
becomes
off.
a legend.
It literally becomes a legend in like 5 quarters of football. So I think it was a absolutely wild year. And I feel like these last 3 years for Washington, like the quarterback situation has just been insane. And you thought it might stabilize this year, but I mean, that wasn't the case, but it was very entertaining and it got the job done this year. So let me ask you a question. And this is something that I know everyone is wondering because finding the quarterback is priority number one. Coach Rivera said it in his exit interview. Is the starting quarterback next year on this roster, in your opinion?
If Alex comes back and plays, yes. I just don't see the way that Alex has played with the limited amount of starts that he had. They were 5-1 at the start. Those numbers, even though Alex didn't put up the numbers, the 5-1 of the starter still matters a lot, and the experience still matters. Now, if he retires, then definitely I don't think the quarterback of the future is not on this roster. At that point, you have to look to the free agency, the draft, and there are a lot of options that we'll be able to get into in February, March, and April, and react to it in May all the way to training camp. But I think that it really just hinges on what Alex wants to do. And I mean, it's really about wait and see scenario, which is frustrating as that is the truth.
I agree. I feel like Alex is kind of the wild card in all of this because if he comes back, do you think someone outside or in free agency gives him a better chance than Alex does, even though he went 5-1 with, an offense that doesn't have as many playmakers as it wants to have going forward? So it's going to be really fascinating. And I think I know fans, they want to find the QB, but I think you got to give, Coach Rivera and this coaching staff and this front office time to work and try to find the right guy, because having that right guy matters.
And they led everybody the right direction so far, so they deserve a little bit of leeway here.
Definitely. And I mean, a position that they basically nailed within free agency and the draft is at running back. Mm-hmm. And we had J.D. McKissick, who they went and got in free agency. They drafted Antonio Gibson in the 3rd round. They also picked up Mr. 3rd and 2, Peyton Barber, in free agency. And just based on what we thought this group was going to be in training camp or even before then, when you had Darius Geis, you had Adrian Peterson, and then all of a sudden things change, AP gets cut, and you realize Antonio Gibson, they must really like Antonio Gibson. And it turns out they did. I mean, he was one of the best offensive rookies in football. J.D. McKissick was one of the best pass-catching backs in football. And Peyton Barber, when you needed 2 yards, he was going to get it. So what did you think about this rushing offense, even though maybe throughout the league, like they weren't very high in terms of yards per game? Like, how do you think they fared?
Well, the key is really how good Antonio Gibson got over the past year, because when you looked at it in week 1, it was kind of middling. It was kind of growing into its own. And then as he started to learn the position more, that's when you saw the running game start to really flourish. I mean, look at both those games against the Cowboys. I mean, he rushed for 100 yards in both of them, had 3 touchdowns on Thanksgiving. And at that point, you really thought that Antonio Gibson was going to be like one of the stars in this league eventually, because of what he was able to do. And with the running game the way it was, and the offensive line blocking the way that it was, it seemed like they were going to start propelling themselves towards, hey, we're going to start winning more of these games more consistently. And I mean, yeah, you like that. I mean, and the Gibson injury did hurt, but McKissick ended up becoming a really good backup and really coming in a pinch when he needed him to. I still don't think he's more experienced than Gibson. I don't know if he's the ceiling is as high as him necessarily yet, but and like you said, even Peyton Barber comes in there, and even though he was Mr. 3rd and 2, he comes in there and gives you 11-yard rushes whenever you need it as well. So I think this is definitely one of the positions that they did hit a home run on, like you said, and really the sky is the limit for this group, because I mean, with Gibson and McKissick back there in the back for at least another year until McKissick's contract expires, then there could really be something good happening here.
Do you think that they'll go out and try to get a running back in free agency or the draft, or do you think they're mostly set with who they have? Because they also have Bryce Love, and they had Javon Leake, who was on the reserve future contract. So what do you think there?
I don't think they're going to. But then again, the running back wasn't necessarily a position that we thought they needed last year, and they went out and got 4 people to be running backs. And I mean, I don't foresee it because I think they have a groove of what they want in terms of how they want the running backs to operate in that offense, which is really a little bit of everything. And McKissick and Gibson both do that. And then whenever Bryce Love comes back from injury, he's able to do both those things as well. I think for once, this maybe they'll add a practice squad guy here and there. Maybe they'll keep Lamar Miller, but I think for now, tentatively, they're set at this position at least.
I agree. I think when you're thinking of position groups for next year, I think running back is mostly going to be the same. Obviously defensive line, and aside from that, I think there could be some changes. But we're going to get into tight end, wide receiver, and offensive line after this break. So stick with us.
This winter, be confident in a rugged, all-wheel drive Honda SUV. Take control of the reliable CR-V, the versatile HR-V, the 8-passenger Pilot, or the adventurous Passport. With features like Honda Sensing, magic folding seats, and 3 different driving modes. Now is the best time to buy. Don't miss your chance to get a great deal on your favorite Honda SUV. See your local Honda dealer and take on winter today. Finch Services Incorporated, recognized in its industry as a world-class organization, is the exclusive supplier of John Deere golf and sports turf maintenance equipment for the Mid-Atlantic region. In business since 1945, Finch helps golf course and sports turf managers maintain some of the most exclusive playing surfaces in the region. Experience the Finch advantage for yourself. Contact one of our golf and sports turf sales specialists to see how we can help you maintain your field of dreams. Go to finchturf.com for more information.
Has your business been affected by COVID-19? Have you considered reducing or moving your office space? Then it's time to call Victory Van. We provide the best service and price with flexible options for your company's moving and storage needs. Visit victoryvan.com to get your free moving and storage quote today. For corporate storage and moving, it's always the right move to choose Victory Van. That's victoryvan.com. Victory Van Corporation, delivering excellence for 75 years and a proud partner of the Washington football team.
We're back. Latest episode of The Rundown, where we are recapping the offensive side of the ball. And I didn't mention this in the intro, but after we finish tight ends, wide receivers, and O-line, we're going to pick the AFC and NFC championship game because it is a close race. I'll give you, Stevie Stats is up on us a little bit, which I'm kind of salty about. She finally strayed away from Zach and blossomed in the divisional round. So
I'll say I was nearly right about upsetting the Chiefs there.
That would have been crazy.
That would have been crazy. The prediction was almost right, but that was the one thing at the end that did me in.
If not for Chad Henne, who would have thought?
I saw Stevie's mic on mute there. Was that?
Anything is possible.
There we go.
No.
She unmuted just to say that.
Oh, that was good. That was good.
Right. So we will talk more about Chad Henne and Patrick Mahomes a little later. But let's get into the wide receivers now, because going into the year, wide receiver was a massive question mark after Terry McLaurin. We talked to wide receivers coach Jim Hostler during training camp, and he pretty much admitted as much, that we have Terry and we have a bunch of other guys, and we don't know who's going to step up. We hope that a couple of different guys step up, and they're able to do enough to help produce on offense. And I think it was, in my opinion, probably still underwhelming as an entire group, but there were some positives. So just from your point of view, what did you think of the group as a whole? And I guess Terry McLaurin too, because we thought of him as the number one receiver, but he really cemented himself as that in his second year.
Yeah, I think if we're looking at the question mark as a 50-point font, maybe it's like a 30-point font now. I mean, like it's still a big question. I think it's the biggest question on the offense, at least. Like I said, Terry is really good. I think he's obviously, Chef Terry, for God's sakes. I mean, he's the number one guy. He's one of the top, 10. The statistics say he's not, but to me, I think he's the top 10 wide receiver, especially if he stays healthy. He's the guy. But I think you have other people who are part of the equation. I think Cam Sims has proven that he deserves to be somewhere in this rotation next year. I think they like Isaiah Wright. I think Steven Sims does some good things. But the number 2 guy, I think, is still up in the air as to who you really want that to be. And I mean, there are some really intriguing options out there in free agency and the draft. I mean, just in free agency in general, you have Allen Robinson, Corey Davis, Juju. I mean, like the list goes on. And in the draft, I mean, some people are even saying this year's wide receiver class is going to be even better than last year's wide receiver class.
Which is insane to think about.
It is insane because people talk about how deep that group was. I mean, my goodness. But I think it's if quarterback is the number 1 priority, receiver has to be number 2. Because you have Terry, and then you have the moving parts, the rotating cast of players out there, which is great if you want a 3 and 4 or even a 5 guy. But you need that definitive number 2, and there will be opportunities to go out there and get whoever that guy is going to be.
I agree, and just in terms of who was on the roster, obviously Cam Sims did more than anyone could have expected this year, which is a really solid sign. And like you said, he is definitely, I don't want to say lock because nothing's a lock, but he put himself in a really good position going into the next year to be on the active roster, to be active on game days, to serve as that wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4. The big wild card at the wide receiver position is Antonio Gandy-Golden.
Yes,
just because. And Kelvin Harmon. I mean, he's the ultimate wild card. So we could be sitting here next year and saying, hey, AGG ended up establishing himself as a top 3 receiver. Kelvin Harmon ended up establishing himself as a top 3 receiver. And then you go out and grab someone else. Maybe it'd be like a Curtis Samuel, someone who was in Carolina with Rivera and Scott Turner. And that's the wide receiver group you roll with, because you don't really – I feel like Washington doesn't necessarily need like that number 1 receiver or a guy who's going to get paid like a number 1 because Terry McLaurin is producing like a number 1.
Yeah.
On a rookie deal, which is huge. So I think they're definitely going to go out and get someone in free agency and probably the draft, because the more wide receivers that you have, the better, and then let the best man win. Coach Rivera loves competition. But I think they did enough this year and another positive from Scott Turner is knowing his personnel. He knew the wide receivers weren't as strong. He relied on the running game or the J.D. McKissick more, relied on Logan Thomas. So I think they got the job done. I don't think it was as big of a weakness as maybe we thought it would be going in, because we were kind of like, really, who's going to catch balls aside from Terry?
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of room for optimism, both in terms of bringing people in and just the guys on this roster developing.
Sure.
So speaking of another guy who developed quite nicely this year was Logan Thomas. So we'll actually have a story up. We're recording this 12:30 on Thursday, and we'll have a story up in a few hours. Logan Thomas and Chase Young actually were rated by PFF as the most valuable additions at their position in terms of WAR. So, I mean, Logan Thomas, he was really incredible. His first year as a number 1 tight end after switching from quarterback a couple years ago, he was only the 3rd tight end in franchise history to have at least 70 receptions, I think, 650 plus yards, 5+ touchdowns. So he was great. He was playing every offensive snap. He was physical in the run game. So, but aside from him, there was a lot to be desired when you talk about Jeremy Sprinkle, Marcus Baugh, Tamarick Hemingway. There just wasn't a lot there. And you didn't think there was going to be a lot there even with Logan Thomas. You thought that was a position that was going to struggle, and he really made up for it. So what do you think of the tight end position as a whole, and then maybe where they can improve or where they go next at this position?
Well, it's definitely a microcosm of the receiver position in a lot of ways. I mean, you have Logan Thomas, who defied a lot of belief and turned into like one of the better tight ends in the league, and proved Pete Hainer and Ron Rivera right when they signed him, when they could have gotten other guys, other top tier guys that some people wanted them to go get. They said, no, we got Logan Thomas, and he's going to be better than some of them, and he turned out to be exactly that. So he does a little bit of everything. I mean, he proved he can go over 100 yards receiving. He can block. He's an ultimate teammate in a lot of ways. The other guys, I think, Jeremy Sprinkle is good as a blocker. Marcus Ball is good as a blocker. Tamark Hemingway, I mean, he didn't really have that much of a chance, opportunity, but he did show that he could be a good blocker. They had the blocking tight ends definitely set. I think the number 2 receiving tight end is an option that they need to go get. And the good thing is they don't have to necessarily go out and get a home run tight end. They can just get another guy that's not as highly touted as some of the other free agents available, and they'll be just fine knowing they have Logan Thomas, who again has been one of the top tight ends last year. So I think it's not as much of a need necessarily as signing a number 2 receiver, but finding that other tight end who you can go to whenever Logan Thomas is covered, that's going to open this offense up even more.
Yeah, I think tight end was really a position that you worried about going into the year. Mm-hmm. And this is really best case scenario, what Logan Thomas was able to turn into versus his previous production where he wasn't even playing a third of the offensive snaps. So I think you definitely have your tight end 1, which would have been crazy for us to say before the season. And then you go out and supplement that with other guys that can at least be threats in the passing game instead of, if he's in the game, it's going to be a run. So tight end ended up working out nicely for Washington. A lot of it thanks to Pete Hainer. So shout out Pete Hainer for the
no matter what they do, even if they don't even address tight end, that that Pete Hainer is going to coach him up, which is a good security blanket for this team.
Exactly, and that actually is a good segue to talk about the other super stud on the coaching staff, John Matsko, and this offensive line. It was another position where there were a lot of question marks. You knew the right side was good with Morgan Moses, Brendan Sheriff, Chase Roullier. The left side, you weren't sure. There was competition in training camp. There were a lot of moving parts. You had Wes Martin started the year at left guard and Jerron Christian at left tackle. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the year, neither of those guys are starting. And you have 2 free agents in Cornelius Lucas and Wes Schweitzer, who really did a solid job. Yeah. And I think overall the offense overperformed based on expectations. So, I mean, what were your thoughts on the offensive line? How do you think they can maybe get better just going into next year?
Well, definitely the pass pro is something they need to fine-tune because they were one of the top teams in allowing sacks. But once that 5 group of Schweitzer, Cornelius Lucas, Roullier, Sheriff, and Moses kind of got in there and they started working together, it started to look pretty good. And even with all the sacks allowed, they were still one of PFF's highest graded offensive linemen, offensive line groups. So they clearly have shown that they can improve. And then plus on top of that, if you really need an example of how they've grown, look at Brandon Sheriff. I mean, Sheriff made another Pro Bowl, added another one to his resume, and then he was the first team All-Pro for the first time in his career. So that just shows you the kind of work that John Matsko is able to do. And I mean, Moses has been a key contributor to that group for years. Roullier got a contract extension just to show how good he's been. I mean, it seems like they have an answer at left guard with Schweitzer. I mean, the key wild card here is going to be Sadiq Charles and Cornelius Lucas, see what they do. I think they would maybe, they'd like to see what he can do, see where he can grow into that position, Sadiq. But either way, I mean, while he's growing, you have like Cornelius Lucas, who has been pretty good and playing left tackle for one of the first times in his career, having to switch up his movements and everything. I can tell you that's not easy necessarily to do, but he grabbed onto it pretty well. So you have to be pleased overall with the future of the position, I think.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the theme of this year, that Washington entered the season, you really didn't know. I mean, you had Terry McLaurin, you thought you had, something in Dwayne Haskins. You knew what you had the right side of the offensive line, and that was really it. There was a ton of question marks, and I feel like Washington answered almost all those questions aside from, which might be the most important one, who is your franchise quarterback? But it's not something where you're looking at it like, okay, we need to go get this piece, this piece, this piece, and then maybe we'll be successful. You realize that, with a quality quarterback in there, someone who's, playing at a high level, that's going to make everyone else better. And I think the other thing is you don't have any free agents, really. The only guy you have to pay is Brandon Sheriff.
Yep.
And aside from that, everyone else is under contract. So, if they decide to bring him back, the offense is looking pretty good from a skill perspective and up front. So definitely more encouraged than I was entering the year, because there were just so many questions, but they answered the question with guys that maybe other teams didn't expect to, be as good as they were.
Yeah. And I'll say this before we wrap this whole thing up is, even though the offense didn't necessarily finish statistically in the top half of the league, you still saw flashes of, okay, this offense can really do some things once the players start to learn the system more and get more acclimated to the plays and things like that. I mean, with that experience combined with a couple more pieces here and there, this offense could be pretty legit. And I think everyone needs to watch out for what they can do.
You can hear every Washington football team game on the Team 980 and streaming on the radio.com app. Listen to the Team 980 every day for expert analysis, Washington football guests, and your calls, along with hosts Kevin Sheehan, Washington football legend Brian Mitchell, Steve Zabin, and more on the official radio home of the Washington football team. Download the radio.com app and favorite the Team 980 today to listen on your phone or smart speaker. At RTS, game day strategy doesn't stop when the whistle blows. RTS delivers smarter, more responsible waste and recycling services. As an official partner of the Washington football team, RTS is connecting the team and FedEx Field with sustainable solutions to care for the community and the environment. RTS, a better waste company. Find out more at rts.com.
Like we talked about, we have to get into the NFL playoff pick'em. It's been fun these past couple of weeks. We were all pretty terrible in the wild card round. We were all 2-4. We were all really good in the divisional round. So Stevie went 4-0, perfect 4-0. Zach and I went 3-1. I had the Ravens, who lost. Zach, like he talked about, picked the Browns, which almost happened, but no
almost
cigar.
Like counting horseshoes and hand grenades.
There we go. So
I was actually watching the game with Zach, and I was like, almost.
that would have been insane if Zach went 4-0 with that. But good job, Steve.
You know that Elmo gif of him like just had his hand up in the air, and like the fire's going in the back. That would have been me that whole day.
Oh my God. So I did like weird points system, but so going into the conference championship, Stevie has 8 points and Zach and I have 6.5 points. And then, so for these last couple rounds, each championship game is worth 3 and the Super Bowl is worth 6. So It's still anyone's game. And we're going to let Stevie go first here so that we kind of know, if Stevie's picking this team, maybe we go opposite, try to gain some ground. But Stevie, what are the games we got on tap, and who do you have in the first game?
All right, the first game we have is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going to Lambeau Field to take on the Green Bay Packers. So this one's actually really tough for me. Something in me is wanting to take the Buccaneers, but also my favorite analyst, Stephen A. Smith, says Aaron Rodgers is a bad man for a reason. So I'm going with the Packers.
Oh my God. Your favorite analyst, Stephen A. Smith?
He's my favorite.
He does bring the energy like every week.
Oh, he does. He does.
What'd you say, Zach?
I said he brings the energy literally every week.
Every week. Yeah, he's my favorite. So for that reason, well, not for that reason, but I'm going with Aaron Rodgers because I also agree that he's a very bad man.
Well, I too believe that he's a very bad man, and he's playing at an unbelievably high level right now. Him and Devontae Adams have been insane. Aaron Jones running the football has been fantastic, and the Bucs have been good, and they were able to beat the Saints even against a Drew Brees-led offense where Drew Brees couldn't really throw the ball deep, so that offense is really limited. But I just think the Packers are too good. I think what they showed against the Rams last week with how they were able to score against that defense just goes to show that they're at another level. And they've really been playing their best football down the stretch. and maybe people forget about them because last year they were also really good, and then got blown out by the 49ers. But I think this year's different. I think Rodgers is getting to the Super Bowl, and I don't know if it's going to be that close.
Yeah, I mean, another team that I was rooting for last week, and Stevie can attest to this, was the Bucs. I was very high on the Bucs this weekend, and I think that runs out this weekend against the Packers. It's gonna be cold. It's gonna be cold as whatever hyperbole reference you want to use. And Aaron Rodgers wanted this one thing, or his whole career in Green Bay. He's wanted a conference championship in Lambeau, and he's got it. And it's going to be freezing in the frozen tundra. It's going to be I think Devontae Adams said he wants the Bucs players won't even be able to open their mouth because they will be so cold to communicate.
Oh my God.
I don't know about that, but I think the offense that they have in Green Bay is just amazing. Aaron Rodgers is playing at a Hall of Fame sort of level. I think he's definitely one of the better players in the league right now, even at his age. So got to go with the Pack. Try to get my best Midwestern accent. The Packers are gonna roll over Tom Brady and the Bucs.
Not bad.
I think they're gonna roll over them.
I'd say 10 points.
Okay.
That's
All right.
kind of what I'm
I mean, they're 3-point underdogs. The Bucs are so.
Okay, well then now let's move on to the next game. We have Buffalo going to Kansas City to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. So this one's hard because we don't know. Pat Mahomes is up in the air with his concussion and his foot injury, but there's just something about the Bills that I love, so I'm going to take the Bills.
Okay, I'm glad that you are taking the Bills because I'm going to take the Chiefs.
Okay.
I mean, I know that Mahomes is dealing with all this stuff. I think he's going to play. I mean, he was a limited participant in Wednesday's practice, but I think he took all the snaps. I know he's still in concussion protocol, but he's going to be out there. And I think the Chiefs are going to find their rhythm. Neither team has really played great in the playoffs so far. They haven't really put together that, and I know it's only been one game for the Chiefs, but the Bills, while they've won, they haven't been blitzing teams like they did at the end of the regular season. I think it's going to be a really good game. I think both teams are going to show up, but I think at the end, it's going to be one of those things where the Bills are going to punt it back to the Chiefs, and Mahomes and company are just going to make enough plays at the end to run out the clock. So I really like what the Bills have done this year, but the Chiefs have too much offensive firepower.
I don't think there's a way. Now, barring we don't know that Patrick Mahomes is not going to play this game. I think the thought is just unfathomable to me to think that he would miss the most important game of the year. But the Bills are really good right now. They're clicking. That defense is one of the best in the NFL right now. And you know what? Screw it. The Bills. They're going because nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs are great. The defense is going to be really good no matter who's in there at quarterback. And I think that the Bills are able to keep up with the Chiefs offense, even if the Chiefs sort of find a way to get past the Bills defense. So I think the Bills are going to make the one critical play they need to change the game with the fourth quarter. So Bills going back to the Super Bowl for the first time since the 90s are going to return.
All right. So either I'm going to jump you guys or I'm going to fall further behind and have to pick whoever you guys don't pick in the Super Bowl.
I do have to point one thing out. Since I went first, Zach copied me instead of me copying Zach.
That's right. Zach saw how successful you were.
We've also been on point, Stevie.
No, you're right. We have been on point.
So let's just stick with what we know.
Exactly.
Yeah, I really should just be sticking with you guys because I feel like who we got have not been good. So
you keep it interesting though.
Yes.
That's true. I mean, Zach keeps it interesting with the upsets.
True. That's true.
I do love a good underdog. I can't help it.
That's true. regardless, it should be a great weekend. I mean, these are the 4 teams that were playing their best football at the end of the year. So it should be really entertaining games. Looking forward to it. So before we get out of here, you guys got anything else? Zach, you have any?
You know I do.
I know you do. That's why I was.
Plugs. Let's go. This is an official podcast of the Washington Football Team. You can check us out wherever you find your podcast: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, YouTube. If you want to see our beautiful faces, you can check it out there. You can check out all of our wonderful work on the app and WashingtonFootball.com. See all of us, our social media content on the Twitters at Zach D. Selby, Kyle Stackpole, and Cats_Stevie. But more importantly, wherever you get all your stuff, make sure you rate, review, subscribe, leave comments, good or even bad or neutral if you're like one of those people. We just like to hear what you have to say because we like to deliver the best content all the time, every time. And you missed it the first time, Kyle. I had to make up for it. But either way, we do like to hear what you guys have to say, and we want to be here to cover the entire ups and downs of the offseason, free agency, the draft, training camp, eventually, all of that. We're going to be here for you guys. So stick with us, and it's going to be a crazy offseason. I can just feel it.
Yeah, I mean, please just whatever way you want to get in contact with us, let us know. What do you like that we're doing? What do you not like? What do you want covered? Because now that we're outside of the season, everything it's a lot less regimented. Like we knew what we were doing during the year, whereas this year, especially end of January and February when not a lot's going on, we're kind of just figuring it out. So if you have stuff you want us to talk about, let us know. If we're being annoying and need to tone it down, let us know. But yeah, we want to just give you all the best content. So for now, enjoy the games, guys. And hopefully the Packers and Chiefs will meet in the Super Bowl, and I'll be laughing at you guys next week. But it probably won't happen because knowing my picks. So for Kyle Stackpole, I just did the same thing you did.
Just introducing yourself, talking to the third person.
Yeah. For myself, Zach Selby, Stevie Katz, this has been The Rundown.
For more than 100 years, Chesapeake Employers Insurance has been helping Maryland businesses keep their workers safe. With competitive pricing and an AM Best A- financial strength rating, it's no surprise that Chesapeake Employers is Maryland's largest writer of workers' comp insurance.
At the end of every workday, someone's waiting for your safe return.
Connect with your agent or visit CEIWC.com.
Reliable power from Novec keeps us connected to so many good things. Life-saving equipment and life-affirming moments depend on reliable, safe electricity that keeps us plugged in and powered up. And as a not-for-profit cooperative owned by the people it serves, Novec keeps rates low and service high. Novec, keeping life bright.
Somewhere in Maryland, Dr. X unleashes his scratch-off masterpiece.
Load the prizes, Cashbot!
Done, Doctor!
Now multiply them!
50 times?
More!
100 times?
Yes, 100 times the cash!
That's $1 million top prize!
Zap, Cashbot, zap!
It's alive!
It's beautiful!
Play all 5 new X multiplier scratch-offs from the Maryland Lottery, like nothing we've created before. Play safely and responsibly.
Not in this Pepsi either. Maybe I need to set the mood.
What is Jim doing?
He heard each can of Pepsi unlocks a Super Bowl halftime experience, so he's been opening Pepsi cans all morning trying to find it.
Shouldn't you tell him he has to, scan the can?
Nah, I'm sure he'll catch on.
No halftime experiences in this one either?
Or not. Scan the can and tune in to CBS on February 7th to catch the Pepsi Super Bowl 55 halftime show.